success is based on, is like that happened today is based on the years and years that have led up to it, or the months or the days or the hard work that led up to it. People just see the win, but they don't see the grind and staying in it, right? There's really something to say about consistency. By Alex and Leila Hormozi, and now runs marketing for Simon Squibb's company, Free Humanity and Help Bank. How does a 28-year-old end up helping two of the biggest influencers in the world add millions of dollars to their top line?
Yeah, great question. The honest answer is good quality mentors. So I owe a lot of my success to standing on the shoulders of giants.
Welcome back to the Growth Under Pressure podcast, sponsored by AdaptCFO. I'm your host, Eric Josovitz. Tobias Allen is with us today. He's gone from self-taught advertising at 16 with his dad to leading marketing for some of the most talked about brands and influencers in the world. He was the director of marketing for acquisition.com, led by Alex and Leila Hormozi, and now runs marketing for Simon Squibb's company, Free Humanity and Help Bank. Tobias, let's start here. How does a 28-year-old end up helping two of the biggest influencers in the world add millions of dollars to their top line?
Yeah, great question. The honest answer is good quality mentors. So I owe a lot of my success to standing on the shoulders of giants, and there's kind of several parts to that. First is just study. So I read a metric ton of advertising books, like the old school ones. So copywriting books, advertising texts, things of that nature. Those gave a really strong foundation and principles. And then in terms of like applying it to the real world, that's where mentorships were invaluable. So for a very long period of time, essentially everything that I made went back into my education. So I was buying online courses and, again, trying to get in the right rooms with people, or even the right businesses and get the right clients. And it just started to snowball. And so it was actually mentors that gave me frameworks on how to apply this kind of psychology to the modern world, like how to go about taking direct response principles and put it into an email list, how to do that on landing pages and build funnels, and then how to ultimately take that to the front end and run advertising campaigns, whether that's through UGC armies or Meta or Facebook ads or YouTube ads. All of the skills stacked on each other, and then they're also it was just how to apply them in the modern world. Like ultimately, online advertising is just a channel, and like the stuff that you can learn in direct mail or the stuff that you can learn in in-person sales environments, you can take that online and you can apply those principles in different ways to get some interesting results.
Right. And your father taught you advertising, and he was in the old school. He had a full career in advertising. So that's what you'd call the old school advertising. And I think of my dad, who is a restaurant real estate broker, and everything that he taught me, I was doing listings online and doing walkthroughs of restaurants. So of course I kind of knew the business. That was a solid foundation for you. And so what you did, if I'm understanding, is you took that, paired it with the new concepts, educated yourself thoroughly, and got your first foot in the door, which ultimately led to more doors that opened up for you.
Yeah, that was a large part of it. So in terms of like the skills that my dad actually taught me, I would actually say it wasn't like copywriting directly. It was kind of more of an indirect approach. So he worked in advertising briefly, and then he then took that into real estate. And a definition I personally use for advertising is advertising is salesmanship in print. So some of the more valuable things that he taught was salesmanship, like sales conversations, things like that, and then I took those principles and applied that to the written word. And then the other stuff was just around having what is called like a well-furnished mind. So reading widely, and then in studying ironically I didn't know I was studying it at the time, is this thing called like the trivium or rhetoric. It's like ancient Greek
Hmm.
persuasion ultimately. Um, he always used to go on about like study the classics, and I never knew what that meant. I thought it was read Charles Dickens and all of this stuff, which I never, I didn't enjoy doing that. And I think I've only read like one Charles
Hmm.
Dickens book in my lifetime. Um,
What's that, Moby Dick?
it was probably like a Tale of Two Cities or like Oliver Twist. Like, um,
Uh-huh. Oh,
it
that's
just,
right.
yeah, I didn't enjoy the classical books. I thought they were really boring. What I now understand is the classics is like how to make an argument or how to communicate. And so this was like Aristotle's like or ethos, pathos, kairos, logos, like that, and translating that to the modern world. Um, yeah,
Mm. History always repeats itself, and what we don't realize is that, we're in this like first world. We have first world problems, just basic stuff, and AI is, which we can talk about in a little bit, but it's
yeah,
just not allowing us to truly get to that logos and understand how brilliant our minds are, yet we're just leaning on it, which is obviously gonna just erode at our minds. So he really guided you on going to, Greek philosophy and standards that you can push into your everyday. And I feel like that also helped you scale up to get your feet in the door, is also being a persuasive person, saying, "Hey, I can do this." It's like, it's not necessarily fake it till you make it, but it's the confidence to show that I'm gonna provide results. What was that first foot in the door for you?
yeah. So it was actually direct mail. So um, one of the things he taught me was something called the MAN formula, which stands for like money, authority, and need. Who's got money or who can afford it? Authority is who is the decision maker or who influences the buying decision. And then need was all about like selling towards a problem, the underlying belief that all sales is a solution. And so that kind of gives you like a lead criteria on who makes a good prospect to sell stuff to. And for me, like one of the lowest hanging fruits that like or opportunities that I kind of like spotted was the direct mail leaflets coming through the door. Um, Local businesses for the most part, and I could basically what I did is I took those letters and then I'd approach the business directly and essentially like go into the premises and I kind of knock on the door and say I can do this better. And one of the first times I did that, I still remember it because I was terrified. I ended up going around the block like not that like it wasn't easy. Like I went around the block just hyping myself up, being like swearing to myself, "You can do this." Yeah, you know the typical kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I eventually got the courage to go into that first one, and uh, it went I got lucky. Is the honest answer. Like I still remember it had like this double door thing, so I got the courage to open up the first door, and then I surprised myself by being greeted by another door before the reception, and so I fumbled that. So I'm like red faced and embarrassed as I'm like opening the next door, and then I'm breathlessly pitching the receptionist. And the luck came because the business owner, in terms of the reception, there was a receptionist there, and then there was some like seating, like general seating area, and thankfully the owner was on the sofa, and she heard my like basically I've got this leaflet, like I can write it better. She heard that, and she,
Nervous pitch.
yeah, and she gave me a chance. Like she I think I went in wearing flip flops, and
Oh no.
yeah, well, so but the thing is, I think because I don't know what it like. I signed her as a client, and it was a nominal
Hmm.
amount. Let's say it was like £200 or something. She said one of the things that made me stand out was the fact that I was so different from quote unquote all the salespeople that had come into the office to like sell stuff. Um, and I think she appreciated that, and she gave me a chance, and um, like that was a good first client for me. Yeah, but I got lucky. I think if I'd gone in and maybe hadn't had a no, like who knows what would have happened. But it was an initial like say like a gift from the universe of like you just did something hard and you got rewarded for it. And yeah, then I had the headache of delivering for her as a client, which that never really goes away because you're making a promise and you should work and do your best to fulfill on that.
Yeah, that's such a balance between getting the client, celebrating, and then delivering. And it's actually something I personally nowadays, over the last year, I've actually shifted my focus to not celebrate the signature, but celebrate the first win, like the results.
Yeah,
Because you can celebrate the big deposit and the monthly recurring revenue,
yeah,
but then when you're busy focused on growth, marketing and sales and strategy, and the client is not getting what you promised them, it's a loss.
yeah,
It's a huge loss. I want to build on this concept on beginner's luck, because I never thought of it this way, but I don't now think beginner's luck is luck. I think it's actually a skill. I'm thinking back to my first real job, like not career or business, but making money as a server. And I worked at a gym when I was like 14 years old, but when I
yeah,
was, I think, 18, I was 18, 19, I was a server. And I remember my first night, I made like $200, and that was close with the other servers. And I only had a couple tables. They were just getting my feet wet. And
yeah,
they all said to me, that's beginner's luck.
yeah,
But if you think about it, that uniqueness of jumping in, people get that refreshing taste of something new, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I got to contribute to that cause." It's kind of like a charity, or
yeah.
um, you know what I mean?
I, 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 I know exactly what you mean. I like throughout my life, I can't even say career. I've had numerous instances of beginner's luck. So, like when I was younger, let's say around 12, moved to the Caribbean for a couple of years with my mum and siblings. And um, there was someone at the school who was a parent who they had a boat and they did tourist like tours for tourists and stuff. And he
Hmm.
joked because they were a family friend. They joked that he would give me a job if I wrote him a job description. And this was like a family dinner or something. He didn't.
Hmm.
I don't think he expected me to take it or like go anywhere with it. But the following day, I sat down that evening and I created a resume. I had no experience to put on it, but I found out how to write a resume, and I came and handed it to him. And I ended up with a job working on this tourist site. And I was 12, serving rum punch to tourists. So obviously it's the Caribbean, so it's like legislation somewhat questionable
Right.
in areas. But I made an absolute killing serving rum punch as a uh, as a kid, and American tourists loved kind of my English accent and the fact that they were getting
Hmm.
served booze in the Caribbean um, by a kid. It just worked really well. Yeah, so but that was beginner's luck, I would say.
Yeah. So you were before 16, with working with your dad and advertising. You were doing it at 12, and it just shows that taking that shot can really prove out, and even just holding someone accountable. But it's like the art of persuasion and follow up, and pushing it and saying, hey, you know what, I belong here. So give us a little bit more on your backstory. How did you go from writing a resume when you're 12 and sending direct mail campaigns at 16 to now running high stakes marketing for big names?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say like I belong here. There's been very few points that I've actually felt like I've belonged. Um, uh, it's actually been more like sometimes a feeling of like imposter syndrome. Um, that's driven me to put more hours in or to to really like over index on studying. I credit a lot of like what I've been able to accomplish as a result of study. Um, like even when I had no reason to, um, because like I didn't always have clients between 16 and today. There were a couple of periods where like I was still trying to find myself. Like I did stuff for clients and then I fell out of it, got distracted, and then went back into it. Um, I was always kind of like dancing around it. Um, the it was a feeling of inadequacy that really drove quite a lot of results ultimately. Because one of the reasons why I kind of like I lost some confidence is I was fairly good at earning trust. Um, so there was a stint in time where I closed quite a lot of clients in a short period of time, and it had mixed results. Um, and that impacted my confidence because I didn't want to say I could do something for someone and not be able to deliver. And what I ended up doing is that's why I ended up working in a number of agencies initially. Is I decided to stop trying to do it on my own and go and work at the best agency I could find in order to get the skills. And it was really just a journey of trying to get skills in order to provide value to others. That that's the thing that started to snowball. It took me 6 months to get a full-time role with this agency. I started off as a copywriter. Well, even before that, I was applying for jobs I was completely unqualified for. So I applied for a media buyer, and I was able to get in the room with the business owner. I had no media buying experience, so they politely declined. But there was something about maybe the interview, because a couple of months later they reached out about me doing copywriting for them, and so that was like my first entryway into the door. And then even though it wasn't much money, I was churning out like 15 ad scripts a week for them, and I did that for months. And it was only what had happened is for this agency in particular, let's say like 5 months in, um, I had developed a certain level of trust with them for being reliable for grunt work, that they started putting more stuff on my plate. And what they did is they ended up giving me an email list of one of their clients. The agency didn't handle email marketing. They said, you're good with words. Let's see what you can do with the email list. The client's not doing anything with it. And again, going back to beginner's luck, like this email list for context was about 100,000 people. It wasn't like a small email list by any means. Like I got given the keys to 100,000 plus email list, and I almost gave up because I couldn't connect. So it was in ecom. I couldn't connect Klaviyo, which was the email service provider, to this brand Shopify store. It was causing me like maybe like a week to 10 days worth of grief, and I was really like pulling my hair out. And I wrote a letter to the owner of the business. I was like, I'm not sure I can do this, like Joe. I'm feeling burnt out. Like this will be the last project that I'll do with you guys, because I was really like it was causing me a lot of issues. But what I said is like I'll see this one, like I'll just get this account sorted, and then I want to take a break. What ended up happening is a reason for the issue with the connection was because the email list was actually so large that it needed something special done with it in order to like properly onboard the account. But then once it was onboarded, essentially within the first 30 days, I was able to pull close to about 240,000, 250,000 in revenue from it. And it was just like a night and day difference. And there's this motivational speaker that says like success is on the razor edge of failure. Like I always think about that moment where like if I'd walked away, I would have never been able to accomplish those results for that client. And unlocking email marketing was a fundamental skill that was a quantum leap in skills for me, because it gave my copywriting distribution. Because I was able to write a really good email and send it out to thousands of people, and then see what sales it generated. And I was like a dog with a bone. I took it and ran with it, and over the next like 6 to 8 months, all I did exclusively was spend like 100 hours a week doing email marketing for brands. So I did it with this agency, and then I did moonlighting with another agency, and I must have worked somewhere in the region of like 50 plus clients over that time, just being a one man like one-man band email marketing department. I was doing everything from full build-outs, graphic design, copywriting, and strategy for the email list. And it just gave me a ridiculous amount of data and data on like millions in ad spend and millions in sales. And it created a really strong foundation for me. But yeah,
That's incredible.
almost.
That's really good.
So yeah, yeah.
So definitely want to dive a little bit deeper into, the next couple of years for you. But the point that you made on you're always on the edge, you're on the razor edge. It's like that saying that, success is based on is like, is based on like the years. It like that big win that happened today is based on the years and years that have led up to it, or the months or the days or the hard work that led up to it. People just see the win, but they don't see the grind and staying in it, right? There's really something to say about consistency. I think about the example of it's like the merry-go-round, on the playground that goes in circle. Um, and I don't know if you know this, if they have this over there in the UK, but one of your friends pulls it along. It's a circle, and it goes in a circle. It goes round and round, and then you jump on, your friends jump on, and then it's going fast, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then to keep it going, someone hops off and runs, right, and keeps it.
yeah,
But the moment it stops,
yeah,
you stop all momentum. So the point is, you got to keep that momentum. Like you were 99% there, small like tweak to the system, the process, and you see it through.
yeah,
And I manage a lot of people. I've seen the good, the bad, and I've had some people that they've within 30 days of working for a client or at a company, something didn't feel natural to them, and they wanted the easy way out, and they left.
yeah,
And I think that's a really poor decision. And just imagine a series of bad decisions if you were to make that, where you would be today.
yeah, yeah. It's one of the more valuable books, or some of the more valuable books, I should say, because there's multiple. Is actually more on books on character, as opposed to like the skills. Um, it's almost as if like you need a better character in order to level up your skills. Specifically around the old school values like patience, perseverance, um,
Hmm.
temperance. Like a defining book, at least from advertising, that helped me was, and I've spoken about this in the past, is Confessions of an Advertising Man by David Ogilvy, and specifically a chapter in there called Advice to the Young, which is advice he would give his son going into career in advertising, and that's what I wanted, was at the time, was a career in advertising. So like the general thing in the chapter was like, how do you go about shaking the pagoda tree? The pagoda tree is like, how do you go about making a fortune? And
Hmm.
the general theme of that chapter was you go and work in an agency, and then you aim to be like the number one person within the agency, like the most well informed. If you get given an account on oil, you become an expert in oil over the course of a year, to the point that you're better than your boss. At which point you're at the point where you can like um, uh, surpass him almost. And so that's kind of like what I aim to do, is like, if I go into a business, I want to be one of the best within the business. And like the way that David explained it in the book is like, you go and pump gas at the petrol station, you read all the textbooks, you study all the previous ads on oil. Like that level of obsession applied to your craft leads to results. And the end of the chapter was, find the right wheel and then put your shoulder against it. And he was like, uh, for him, that was advertising. So that was very material for me in terms of decisions I made when it also came to clients. I'm somewhat rare, I guess, in the agency space, in the sense of I try and get as few clients as possible, or hyper focus on the one client, and uh, Andrew Carnegie said it is like put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. To be clear, it doesn't always work because client selection is super important there. But when I was at acquisition, that was all I did. It was acquisition. I didn't mess around with clients on the side or side projects or anything. I was there for 2.5 years, so I devoted everything towards scaling that individual business. And I went deep on one company, which that level of depth I've personally found leads to better results. So, and that was also a learning lesson earlier on in my career, because I did the opposite. I'd signed, let's say, 20 clients in doing all different things, and it was just an absolute nightmare, and didn't want to do that. And so I found going deep in one business was something that led to outsized returns. And so that's kind of what I still have continued to do today. So yeah.
Yeah, acquisition.com is sort of your merry-go-round, right? You were able to keep that momentum and continue it and just build and build and build. I actually have the $100 million leads right there.
Yeah.
And the point on Carnegie and the letters and that mentorship from that book, because that one chapter is really mentorship. I have right there the letters to Rockefeller's son.
Yeah.
So he wrote a series of letters to his son, and it's just a guide on what to do with life. And you mentioned standing on the shoulders of giants. You need that mentorship. You like, and by the way, we're taught, for all those out there listening, we're talking about growth. This is what we talk about on this podcast. And on the other side, there are some people that I manage still today, and I have managed in the past, that want to get in at 9 a.m. and leave at 5 p.m. as soon as the clock strikes the top of the hour. And they don't want to grow. They've made it clear that they like what they do, so they'll get a small percent increase in their salary every year. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about growth, exponential scaling, and you've become an expert in that. Now, you went from agency to acquisition and now working with Simon Squibb. Talk to me a little bit about the inside. What are you working on these days? What does life look like?
Yeah. So present day, at least title wise, I'm the global director of marketing for Free Humanity Group. So involved in scaling kind of the divisions within the group. In terms of what that looks like, I got asked a question earlier on a different podcast. It's like, if I were to work with you for a week, what would surprise me the most? And my answer was where I spend my time. So right now, I'm basically, like, depending on the business, it's either leading the team or actually in the weeds building stuff out. So I'm leading the team, like specifically the performance marketing side. I'm not claiming to take credit for anything on the content. I just try and connect it to funnels and connect it to business growth.
Get it in front of people.
Yeah, and a specific emphasis on driving performance within a business around revenue, sales, profits, things of that nature. On one division, involved in leading the team and setting the strategy. So what offers do we have, or what offers do we need to have? And then how do we get that into the marketplace? And then being able to work closely with sales to be able to make like leads connected to the sales team. In other businesses, it's actually like 0 to 1, like full on. I'm in the weeds setting up. So for instance, we've got a brand coming out in April. It's a D2C brand. It's literally the 0 to 1, like going in and building out the Shopify site, building out the Klaviyo email automations, like working with an agency to build out the automations, like sitting with them and writing the copy of what it goes from email number 1 to email 14. Like, it's very, there's this frame of like maker versus manager. I kind of like straddle both functions depending on what the business needs. And I would still say a special emphasis is the ability to write good messages that can make a difference. Simon's got a children's book coming out literally in less than a month. So the last 2 days, I've been involved with the head of the socials here, and we've been coming up with a children's book campaign. Now, to be clear, this is somewhat tight time frame. I normally like a 6-week runway, so we're within a smaller period of time there. But like, what I literally said this earlier today is something a lot of people don't appreciate with ads is how do you get someone emotionally involved in a campaign before you're trying to sell something. It's this idea of people. In order to get people to open up the wallets, you first have to win their hearts. And so, like 2 things I've done today is I've actually gone around the team and I've been asking them, out of all the content that you've done, like some of the team has been here a lot longer than I have, what are some of these pieces of content that have resonated for you? Or what are some of the stories that you've seen? I'm building context on what's resonated with them, and if it's resonated with them, how can that resonate with other people? Because I'm looking for first that emotional bond that I can build between an audience and this product before I'm trying to like quote unquote like push the product. So that's kind of what I've been working on today, and then it's that across various parts of the company. So yeah, one of the ways I describe it to people is like it's kind of like that scene from The Lion King where it's the big lion is talking to the cub and is like, you see everything the sun touches is yours. That's kind of me with marketing. Like whatever is needed from a marketing standpoint, I will likely jump in and get involved. And this is across PR, email, team / hiring, writing ads, running ads, building the funnels. Bit of an all-rounder.
This is I wouldn't say a large business. It's still, I would say, and I don't know the numbers behind it. And we talked a little bit about what can be shared and what cannot. But Simon has been doing this for a long time. He has millions of followers. And, for the small businesses out there that are starting from a small budget, but trying to get to the next stage, so what you're saying is there's a level of emotion and, connection that you want to make with your audience. But what about the budget? What about the ad budget? Because I feel a lot of times, we're going up against guys like you that are just going to drown out those small budgets. Is it easier at this stage? And is there anything that a small business can do to still compete from a budget perspective?
Yeah. So the honest answer is I'm not actually thinking about my budget compared to someone else's budget. It's actually more about being very selfish towards the business, which is what do we need in order to make this work? I will draw inspiration from the external environment. I'll draw inspiration from competitors or anyone in other industries. But like to be clear, like when I came into this business about 6 months ago now, didn't really have much advertising budget. Like Help Bank, for instance, which is one of the divisions, is a freemium model. It doesn't charge for anything. So against the context of how do you advertise a platform that has no monetization model, like I had no budget to start to scale that. And so that was a creative challenge that came up with a solution for, because it turns out making a freemium platform profitable is an interesting idea, but we were able to accomplish that. So but like the budget, the way I view budget, regardless of any business, and even and honestly, I do this regardless of what the size is I want to go out and get the budget. So it's very much a sales focused approach. So for instance, I'll speak to acquisition. The year before I left, we did the workshop division, or the workshop advisory division, or the
Hmm.
advisory practice, should I say. Myself and the sales director and another member of the team, we were involved in selling the first couple of workshops. And we did that the old school method, where like ringing up people, old school dialing, and sending
Hmm.
emails out. We sold the first two or three, give or take. Let's say there was 50 people per room back then. That was, and the workshop tickets at that time were 3,000 per person. That was like, let's say we just sold two of them, 50 times three. We brought in about 300,000 in revenue with like 2-3 guys. That funded the advertising in order to take it to the next level. Not that it needed it, the business had money, but like that's how I like approaching marketing generally, is making it pay for itself. And so therefore I don't have the excuse of like we don't have the budget. I'll go out and get the budget. And if needed, you can use content to get sales organically initially, and then you reinvest into building it out. That's always kind of the approach that I personally like, because unless the business is funded, or has had funding in the past, you still have to like bootstrap growth a bit. And I mean, we can speak to that if you want. I've worked I was the CMO of a platform, and we raised about 20 million. Running marketing in
Yeah.
that context, wildly different from bootstrapping a business where like you've got budgets and things like that. I will say I had a lot of fun when you get given basically a blank check, but
Hmm.
the world doesn't work like that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is like I've never really used budget as an excuse. A reason I've got the skills to be able to like go in and build funnels or emails or all of these things. I'm not saying they look pretty, to be clear. Like an expensive agency could probably do it better than I can, or make it look prettier. But like I've had to go and do it to like get the V1 up that can make revenue in order to then unlock the ability to pay for that agency. It's like work with what you've got, improve the situation, and then through those new resources, be able to unlock the next stage. Even with this brand that we've got launching in April, there are certain things I would like in place that I haven't quote unquote earned yet. I like the ability to like earn scale. They're on my bucket list or my wish list. I will bring in revenue first in order to then justify it, in order to pay for that. So yeah, that's kind of an approach that I like.
Not a lot of people in the early stage think of it like that, or they fall to being the victim of their situation, which we know the successful ones, they hustle. So, you know, I think it's safe to say that growth comes from hustle, and it's not always, hey, let's look to marketing because we need more at bats. It's go, go find the bats, go get the baseball so you can then get that consistency and yeah, and make room, make the budget, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's really good. Um, you mentioned the days when you were just burnt out. I do want to circle back on the startup bootstrapping, because that's
Yeah.
a fun topic. I love the startup world, but
Yeah.
I want to get a little deeper into those high pressure moments, because that's what this podcast is about. It's growth under pressure.
Yeah.
Do you do you have a situation where you just were so under pressure where you didn't know what tomorrow looked like? It was dark. Maybe it was around a launch or an event or,
Yeah.
big ad account in your career that you can share with us?
Yeah. There's been a few. The I'd say a lot of acquisition was quite high pressure. It was high pressure from performance. Um, and I'll give you an example. So I was there 2.5 years. The first year was exclusively within the UK, and time zone was not my friend. So Vegas, 8 hours behind. My work day was basically from when I woke up till sometimes 3, 4 in the morning, or when the birds started chirping. And I did that for a year straight. The under pressure was, my body basically started giving in before my mind did. Like, uh, pushing it that far within a year was just not healthy. Like, I started to get migraines and like nosebleeds because I just was neglecting my health because I was just trying to work all the time. And I basically just like locked myself in a room to work with the portfolio and scale those businesses. So that was like pressure I put on myself. Related to like pressure around launches, the something that I personally found to be very beneficial for getting me through those moments is the mission of the business. So acquisition's mission is to make real world business available to everyone. And during the first book launch, so 100 million leads, this one, I was leading point on a lot of the performance marketing. So, like handling the agency that was running the ads, running all of the emails, running the entire affiliate program. It was quite a lot, particularly in the week leading up to the event. And the thing that got me through that moment was the mission, because I truly believed that if I could, what I was doing is like if I could get one more book into someone's hands, it could make a difference to an entrepreneur. And a thing that I really like with businesses is like you grow a good business and you can provide jobs for people, and then you can also, if it's a good product or service, that's the stuff that impacts people's lives. Like I'm wearing glasses or a hat. Like this only exists because an entrepreneur has decided to manufacture this product or to bring this service to life. And so I felt like this book was showing business owners how to get leads. I was like, if I can just get one more book in someone's hands, it potentially will change quite a lot of lives. And so during that hard period of time, that mission was the thing that like allowed me to tap into, I would say, more forms of like energy, I guess. That would definitely be a piece to it. And then outside of mission, at least again during those moments, it was the support of my relationship. Like the reality is like everything was going to work. I wasn't looking after myself. So having someone who could cook and clean for me, as it were, and just like support me in everywhere else I was dropping the ball, was the reason I was able to go as hard as I did into the business. And I do have some regrets around that. But that's how I was able to do it. And it's not, we talked about this at the start of the podcast or before we went on, is I wouldn't recommend it. Having done it, I don't think it's required. And I think I brainwashed myself with hustle culture to think it was a requirement when in reality it really wasn't. There are diminishing returns, and I was very much in diminishing returns land. So it's not something I would recommend others to do. I think Abraham Lincoln quote, if you're cutting a tree, spend the first 80% of that time like sharpening the saw. If I was just better with my time or at that moment, I think I could have got similar results with just being more efficient. But you don't know these things until you know them, I guess. And I was particularly stubborn, so it required that until it kind of like clicked.
It's funny because a lot of entrepreneurs and founders and even just professionals, they just drive hard, long hours. You think of like investment analyst, or someone working in New York where they just go home to shower, or someone in the Philippines that's working for a big four, doing audit and just I've heard the stories, just going home to shower and they're in the office just burning the midnight oil. And it's funny because a lot of our lives get shaped by that. And frankly, you learned a lot from those experiences, and that has allowed you to grow. And I do think that in today's age, a lot of the early 20-year-olds may look at it differently, to say, hey, you know what, I can make money or do something differently
Yeah.
to to build wealth. But I do think that that shapes who you are down the road, because you are going to also have those challenges later on. And what happens when they drop in your lap at 40, 50 years old, and you're like, you never went through it in your 20s.
Yeah.
So I do understand the loss of relationships and pushing people around you out, which is inconvenient. But yeah, there is, you know what I just heard? It's like the four burner analogy, where you have a stove top, and each burner on the stove is a different thing that you can only have three stoves on at a time. So it's family, it's health, it's friendships, and then it's work.
Yeah.
And you have to give up one. And you gave up health, right? And you gave up friendships.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
my friends were people I was working with, like just like in the business, everyone who was working with was a friend. And yeah, um, yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
yeah, it's it's like hindsight 2020,
Yeah.
it's never perfect. Do you have another growth under pressure moment in, maybe, I know in the recent stuff you've really had to make work what you have. I know you talked a little bit about the agency.
Mm.
Would love to hear another moment if you have one.
Yeah. So recent. Um, I mean, I'm not sure when this will be released, but I found out that I'm going to be a father. So my
Congratulations.
yeah, that feels like a growth under pressure moment. Which is why I
Yeah.
asked again before the call today is your belief around how family impacts business. Um,
Hmm.
uh, and so the growth under pressure moment is preparing for that and restructuring my time so I can be present. Um, I said one of the edges that I was looking for an edge anywhere I could get an edge was opening my calendar up. So I essentially calendar was open from 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight 1 a.m. Um, I can no longer like do that in good conscience. So in my calendar settings, it's like putting constraints of like when the workday starts and when it ends. And now I'm giving myself constraints to how do I still do what I've done historically, but now in this allotted time so that I can be present for this other part of life that I've never experienced before. And so I'd say right now is a growth under pressure moment of how I'm gonna step up in this role. I think a credit to Simon and something that's going through my mind right now is like kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. And so big focus right now is how I'm structuring my time and behavior to be a good role model, um, while also still being able to have achievement. And so that thing I spoke about of like reading, I still read. So I'm studying billionaires at the moment because I think they're quite interesting in how they view the world and how they think. Um,
Hmm.
and one of them is some of the beliefs that they mentioned about they're more successful as a result of having a family. Um, they're like one of them I think was the CEO of a crisps company in North America, and he made the argument that if you're still doing work at the weekends, you're failing because you're not in control of your time. Like there's all these new beliefs that I'm exposing myself to, which I'm like cherry picking the ones which I think are the most beneficial. And yeah, this is I would say this is a present growth under pressure moment because the demands on my work have not decreased. If anything, they've increased relative to other parts of my career. But now I can no longer devote everything to it. Um, so it's that how do I maintain the two, or how do I still make sure I'm still winning over here while else I'm winning over here? Um, and like I'm pretty confident in my ability to do that. So yeah, we'll see.
That's great. Well, what a beautiful moment. Very happy for you.
Thank you.
And if I can give you any piece of advice, it's that you are not ready for this. No one is ready for it.
Yeah,
It's this is going to be the most challenging yet rewarding thing you've ever had in your life because that's what parenthood is. It's no one can train you for it. It's like getting thrown into your global head of marketing role and never doing marketing before in the past because it's just going to be different challenges thrown at you left and right. But the thing about being a parent and a father is that you're going to learn, like you're going to learn, you do know how to go nights without sleep, right? But you're going to learn the different cues that the baby gives you and all those things and how to shift your mindset to balance both, right? Like before we started recording the podcast, I dropped my daughter and son off at school.
yeah,
And, I'm in the car and thinking about work or other things, but you have to give them your undivided focus, your spouse and your child. And I pray that you grow a big family and become wildly successful. I know you're already on that path, but to your point on being there and influence, that's the key. You can sit back and teach your son or daughter to go do this and go do that, but unless you're doing it, you, you're not practicing what you preach.
yeah,
And influence is by far one of the most powerful ways to teach someone because they're seeing you do it. For example, my son is now 5. When he turned 4 years old, he started doing no, when he was 3 years old, he started doing jujitsu.
amazing.
And it was, he's like this little baby doing it. And guess what? I started doing it as well.
Yeah,
So over the last 2 years, we've both done it together.
yeah,
And not only have I done it and scaled up and gotten a blue belt, which is awesome because I ended up loving it.
yeah,
He has days when he loves it and doesn't, which is okay. But
yeah,
this is the influence. I also competed last year and did really well. And he got to see that and see, and that kind of drove this little spark inside him.
yeah,
And lastly, I put down my work every night at 6 p.m. my time
yeah,
until they go to bed. And you can still have that imbalance, but you just have to know that when it's family time, put the other stuff away, focus on what matters because work comes and goes. Yeah, it's fun and exciting and it's we're passionate about what we do, but family is what's going to always be there, and that's our legacy. That's what we're building towards. I'll leave you with that advice. We had a little bit of technical difficulties on how to balance but still be unbalanced at the same time. You can pick up your work when the kids are asleep if you really want to burn the midnight oil. um and I don't work weekends, right? Like I every once in a while, like this weekend I may do a Saturday, but it's really just being there primarily for those kids when they really need you and not being an absent father. That's really the goal. And they just provide and provide and provide
mm,
tons of blessings on our lives. So I'll just leave you with that.
thank you, thank you. The other thing is, the reality is like the 80-20 rule. 80% of results come from 20% of the efforts. Like, um, I've seen enough successful people work without weekends or without burning quote unquote the midnight oil, and they can do it because they've got leverage, which is now easier than it's ever been, particularly with AI. But they've done it because they're very good at identifying the 20% that delivers the 80% of results. Like if you just do that within your working time, you're going to generate really good results for a company. Like last week, I decided to take Thursday and Friday deliberately off. Like I pulled every meeting off of my calendar. Nothing broke. And if anything, I was able to work on stuff that I should have been working on. Um, and so it's just stuff like that. So a good reminder that like to really stress test what you actually spend your time on when you're at your quote unquote desk, because the reality is you probably can cut half of it and still get the same output. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. The 80/20 rule works across so many different areas. It's nuts. Um, but there's something to say about delegating, where a lot of people think that, well, I'm just gonna shift these responsibilities to someone else, so I can't do them. But really, what you're doing is you're spreading work across a team, right? Like it's the same thing with a family. You now have a team that you can share different roles and responsibilities, and you can lean on other people when you need to, because guess what? Those same people are going to want to lean on you when they need to. So, in a world where we're stretched super thin, there's also balance. I want to dive into your childhood, because I feel like every successful executive and entrepreneur and high growth person has some aspect of their childhood, whether it's a person or a situation that helped grow them. I know your father was a big part of that. Is there someone or something that happened during your childhood that helped shape who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was probably so when I was about 7 or 8, my parents split up. So they uh that happened, and I'd I'd grown up in relative luxury. So up until that point, we had a very comfortable family home. There were like family holidays, things like that. Um, Essentially overnight, all of that disappeared.
Mm,
So during my parents' like divorce, should we say, my dad's assets got frozen, and so I also like so I'm a triplet, so I have an identical twin brother and a sister. We went from living in the house that we'd been growing up with and known, and then we moved to somewhere entirely different. Um, Also ended up going to a different school, uh, lots of different things. Big picture, I went from a life of relative comfort to kind of the opposite. And I think a large motivating factor for me was kind of this subconscious desire to get back to it. Um, so I would say that was a defining moment, for sure. And then um, just wanting to be like my dad. Ultimately, he'd been quite successful in business, and I wanted to model him. So uh, yeah, like those were defining things. And then just part of me is like there's school report back from when I was 12, and it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I've got a booklet somewhere of my answer, and my 12-year-old's response was, I either want to be a CEO or an actor. Um, for whatever reason, that was just always kind of what I was wanting to drive towards. Um, so yeah, like uh, I guess I always had this kind of inclination for it. And the other thing is, I also have this belief that like I shouldn't really even be here right now. Like, I'm an IVF baby, so uh, my dad was infertile, so like I only exist because of science. And then when I was born, I had a diaphragmatic hernia, so I'm only here because the doctor saved my life. And so like stuff like that, I've kind of reframed of like, well, um, there must be a reason why I'm like here today. How can I use that to do something meaningful? And the thing that I've kind of focused on is scaling companies, because I think, as I said earlier, like you can provide jobs for people and you can hopefully make other people's lives better. So that's kind of, I guess, a subconscious motivation or a purpose that I've consciously decided for myself.
It's really interesting that you use the divorce as a springboard to push you to the next level, because most people think that when their parents go through a divorce, it tears the kid and can really bring them down and change their trajectory to not be a substantial linear growth or exponential growth situation, but more of just a steady decline in the wrong direction, which I I love hearing that. And I think for our viewers as well, it's not a one size fits all situation. It's how you take it. I know you also mentioned your twin brother didn't do everything that you did. And just seeing, I was talking to my wife about this, where I knew a twin from my high school, and they were completely different. They were identical in elementary and middle school, but when high school hit, they went their own separate ways and their likes, and they became completely different people.
Yeah.
And going back to the influence, it seems like it was less about, I want to make my dad proud. It was more about, this is a strong father figure in my life that is able to provide for his family, and he's able to do so by doing X, Y, and Z. Now I can look up to him and I can follow in his footsteps. But I feel the same way with myself, but I want to push to another level, right? We want to grow beyond that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Just to wrap up, one question, and I want to go into a rapid fire. I'd
Yeah.
love to get your insights on AI. It doesn't have to be marketing, but what does the landscape look like to you, and
Yeah.
what tools are you using or use cases that you think people listening should start with?
Yeah. The biggest thing is the frame of how I use AI, I think is probably maybe the most valuable. So I previously worked for an AI startup. That was the business that raised the 20 million Series A. Um, I was in an environment where everyone was good at AI, and I felt entirely incompetent. So what I decided to do is I spent 2 weeks going down an AI rabbit hole, being like, how can I compete with these guys? Like sometimes I don't like tech, so this idea of like trying to compete with someone who gets lit up going to their computer at 9 a.m. like Claude coding something for the next 8 hours. I choose your hill that you want to die on, or choose an arena that you can win. I was like, how do I possibly compete with that? The answer that I personally came up to at that time was amplify existing skills. So the way I use AI now is, how can I amplify the stuff that I'm personally good at? And I'll compete on that, as opposed to trying to compete on based on someone else's skill set. And so to that end, quite surprisingly, I think for most people, is I use predominantly ChatGPT, and I will hire people within my marketing team who are quote unquote the cracked AI developers, and I'll leverage kind of my skill set on leading and motivating a team. Like I'll still keep abreast of what's going on and stuff, but I'll give you an example. In this business, we were involved in launching celebrities, as one of the things that we were doing, and we used to have these central Google Docs where we were planning out the campaigns on how we would launch this person's celebrity. What I thought was very interesting is you would have people go off in all different directions, and then they'd come back and they'd start to put the same ideas on this piece of paper. And it became quickly apparent to me that they were all using AI to like work through that in their minds, how to like launch a celebrity. And what I thought was really interesting is, despite the fact they were using different models or different prompts, like prompt engineering and all of that kind of stuff, it was coming to the same, oh yeah, do these things. AI was giving people the same answers or the same ideas. So I don't have actually much confidence in AI's ability to generate new ideas or ideas that are different, particularly if everyone's using it the same, like everyone's using it and pulling the same ideas out of it. So yeah, basically in terms of how I use AI, like my AI stack right now is, I'll use Whisperflow, which is you talk to your laptop. Just I use that to rapidly do emails and text to speech, so it's like a small edge there. And then I use ChatGPT to for a lot of the other stuff. When it comes to copywriting, I still like write everything myself. particularly where like it matters, yeah, I might use AI to like act as an editor at times. And then in terms of like the tools that my marketing team are using or we're using in our software stack, we're using like no code builders, AI image gen, things like that. But the general frame is we're using it to amplify what we're already doing that we know works, not trying to like come up with whole new stuff. Like it's very easy to get lost in the source of like, oh, this tool does this, but it's like, does this actually help the business, or is it just like quote unquote mental masturbation? Versus we can build an old fashioned funnel that prints millions in revenue on previous technology that works and is cheap and costs us nothing. Like a lot of it for me right now is to a degree shiny object syndrome, and I'm just focused on, again, driving business performance. And you don't always need an AI tool in order to do that. So, bit of a maybe an answer all over the place, but I guess the fundamental frame is use it to amplify what we're already doing, and
Yeah.
can it produce as good a result for what we want to do? Yes or no? Like,
It's so refreshing to hear that you are still doing your own copywriting, because that is one thing where I was thinking AI is going to take it. And you're right. I even putting together questions for our podcast, I didn't want to run it through. Yeah, I get maybe, a basic bullet point from ChatGPT, but to get some of those unique questions, it comes from here. It comes from knowing my audience. It comes from thousands of aspects that,
yeah,
ChatGPT doesn't know. And love that you're using Whisper Flow. I subscribe to it. I use it every day. It's amazing. Are you using any email tool or like Gamma for presentations or anything else like that?
yeah. So to the point of like amplifying stuff, we'll use Gamma when it comes to writing maybe like proposals for clients.
Hmm.
Um, like we're using Lovable to make proposals for clients. Sometimes it's more engaging than like creating a slide deck. Like we're using it to get speed in certain areas, but not all the time. Again, it depends on, I think context is super crucial or super important. And so sometimes like we are in a like if we're trying to close a, let's say, 7-figure deal for the sake of argument, we're still making that proposal ourselves. We're not necessarily delegating that to AI because there's more at stake ultimately.
Yeah.
And so like a thing that I constantly think about is it's still quality. There is still an element of like quality beats quantity for certain things. AI can help you increase the quantity, but provided you still maintain quality at scale, that's ultimately what I'm wanting to achieve. Like if you write an email and send it out to 10,000, 100,000 people, and it's got a typo in it, you amplify that problem 100,000 times. A bad idea that's AI slop that you're putting into the marketplace and trying to amplify is a bad idea that you amplify hundreds of thousands of times. So ultimately using it to make life easier in certain areas, but not becoming overly dependent on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's super important. I can think of many reasons and things that we've done where it was all about quantity and we failed, and the quality aspect was lacking. And especially the ones out there that are doing inbound to us, where my mentality is just, I have no interest in this. This is not, I can see where you've made many mistakes. Let's close real quick with 3 rapid fire questions. What is one
yeah.
metric you check every week, no matter what?
Money in, money out.
Okay, great. So cash flow,
Yeah.
net cash flow. And if you could recommend for founders under pressure, or other entrepreneurs, one book or podcast that you'd recommend to them that they can either get better at marketing or just overall handling pressure, or just life, anything that can add value to them would be great.
Yeah. So I know you asked for one, but I'll give three. One is called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by a guy called Frank Betcher, for founders who are struggling with sales. So it's a really good book that kind of gives you permission on making sales not this quote unquote slimy thing. And I know a lot of founders that have said that like it's been beneficial to them because they feel comfortable selling, and as a result of feeling comfortable selling, they do better at it. Next one is something called Play Bigger, which is a guy called Al Ramadan, and it's kind of like how to become a category leader, or like thinking behind how to become a category king.
Hmm.
Um, and then the third one would be David Ogilvy's Confession of an Advertising Man. I think it's just a very enjoyable read, and I think there's a lot of insights in there on how to grow a big business.
Going back to the beginning,
Yeah.
finish the sentence for me. A founder or creator under pressure should always.
Founder or creator under pressure should always keep going.
That's perfect. That goes back to the consistency and momentum aspect we talked about. Tobias, this was incredible. I know we're going to stay in touch. We've already been talking offline. I wish you the most success and
Thank
really appreciate you joining me today. That's it for today's episode of Growth Under Pressure. I'm Josovitz from AdaptCFO, and I hope these insights help you tackle your biggest scaling challenges. If you want to help other founders find the show, give us a quick follow or a share. Thanks for listening, and I hope to catch you next time.